So are you guys tired of the Hallicrafters S120? I think I've done 4 videos on this thing. Such a simple 4-tube receiver. I think I've gone through every part of it by now. Well, on the way out of the ham exposition down in Marlborough, Mass. on last week on Saturday, I actually was just walking out and this guy was loading an S120 that looked like it had been in a garage or a barn for 35 years with water dripping on it. It was a real basket case and covered with rust and pitted, knobs and front panel bezel and so on. So I figured that I need to rescue this poor receiver and let's see what we can do with it. Well, I get the thing home. I open it up and it's pristine inside. It's even got the original Hallicrafters tubes. I don't think it's ever been touched. And turning it over, it's got some kind of a fancy selenium rectifier. It's a fairly late model serial number, but this is going to be an interesting project. I'm not going to bore you with that part, but what I'm going to do is show you the basics of bringing a really rusty chassis back and matching the paint so you can get the paint on the outer case to look exactly like it should for a Hallicrafters receiver like this. And we'll do a few tricks to try to get rid of the pitting and the rust. So this is all about just a little restoration on the S120, a short video on the restoration. And don't judge a book by its cover. This guy's going to be a nice receiver. So of course I just finished up with an S120 on a video series. And I went to the Ham Expo down in Massachusetts, and this guy was just getting ready to leave. I think this thing was headed for the dumpster, and I just had to have mercy on this poor, could we call it a barn find quality? Hallicrafters S120 has seen better days, let's just say. Wow, this guy's tough. Now, of course, some people would simply take it, plug it in, and see if it works. But, it don't sound too good. I don't think I would even try. Yeah, I don't think I would even try to do anything with this before taking it apart, full disassembly and inspection, to see if it's even worth working on. So, here it is. The barn find S120. Can it come back to life? Look at this back panel. The back panel looks pretty darn good. Boy, I don't know how this case should be so rusted, but the back panel in such good shape. And it doesn't appear to have any water damage. Well, let's slip it out and let's see what's inside. Wow, taking a peek inside, that looks like a pretty good chassis. Wow, original Hallicrafters tube, too. Maybe this thing's never been apart. Don't judge a book by its cover. Hey, this thing is not bad inside. Not bad at all. It looks darn good inside. I expected to see a rusty mess inside, a complete mess. It's really in good shape inside. So I guess we need to take the case off and give it a fresh coat of gray paint. Dress that out. But yeah, even the dial strings seem to be intact. Well, there is hope for this beast. I was hoping that I would get a hold of another one of these radios because the last time I worked on this radio, I was not pleased with the amount of hum that I was getting out of the radio, and I tried almost everything, including replacing the cup plate unit here and putting all discrete parts in, changing all the caps. I even changed the diode out. So this is really interesting. They've got some kind of a fancy selenium rectifier diode here. I think there were several versions of this radio. This is a long-lived product that went through some part evolution as time went on. But this, again, looks like a fairly late model unit. So I think there's hope for this radio. Speaker looks good, except there's a little bit of fuzz missing around the voice coil in the middle. But again, this is really looking fresh inside. I do have the replacement capacitor that goes here. I might just stick that in. But amazing. Never would have dreamed it looked like this inside. So you saw how bad that outer case was. Very, very rusted. And to take care of that, I ended up using some pretty rough automotive style sandpaper, and took that down. Got as much rust off as I could. I gave it a little coat of rust dissolver and wiped that off good with water. Then some finer sanding. Then I put some rusty metal primer. This is Rust-Oleum. Now, when you put paint over primer, make sure that the brand is the same. So, you know, they're using the same solvents and so on. That way it doesn't bubble up or cause trouble. This particular 2X Ultra Cover Winter Gray Gloss. Absolutely perfect match. I couldn't believe it. You never get something to match a chassis. It's always a shade or two off, or it doesn't have enough blue, or it's too, it's too dark. I couldn't believe it. It went on, and you can't even see where you've put it on. The bottom wasn't bad, and I've sprayed a little bit of it on the bottom, and it absolutely is beautiful. So I did the bottom with a little touch-up. Now on the bezel, this front part that's all shiny, I quickly hit that with some Neverdull, shined it up. It looked like it was going to come back okay, so I taped it. So it's been taped off so the paint doesn't get on it. I've simply avoided getting too close to this Hallicrafter sticker. Not that worried about that. I'll just probably stick that down with some glue. But the top is where I'll be a little more careful. And that's where, the primer's already dried on the top. If you have to, use your heat gun to heat everything up from the inside to get it up to temperature, to get it to dry a little faster. But no, I'm very happy with this case. Don't know what kind of luck I'm going to have with the knobs of the front panel, but that case is going to look really nice when it's done. So it's pretty rough in the front, and this is brushed aluminum. There's not a whole lot that can be done to this that won't destroy the lettering, but I am willing to try a product called Neverdull. It's kind of a wadding material with some really fine grained grit added to it that might be able to bring back these knobs and this front bezel a little bit. So let's try that, and I'll be really careful. Also notice the screws have rust on them. That could be taken care of with the navel jelly to remove the rust and make them look a little bit better. So just cleaning up the knobs and hitting the front panel with the Neverdull's fine, but what's underneath? So I've removed the front bezel, and we see that the water has gotten down in between, and some work's going to have to be done on the front of the chassis. And this is a good video because it shows you the insulation that's between the chassis and the front panel and the cork insulator. Hallicrafters went to great lengths to reduce the possibility of electric shock by touching the front panel, going as far as to use insulation and a shoulder washer on the phone jack. So a little bit extra precaution, but once this gets wet, the insulators can break down, especially the cork, and all of that nice insulation goes away, and now you can get a little tickle again. So anyway, we need to do a little cleanup here before we reassemble. Also, once you get the front panel as good as it's going to get, as far as the markings here, once you get it as good as you're going to get it, it's probably not a bad idea to hit it with some Krylon just to stop further oxidation. It's in fair condition now, fair to poor condition, but at least it doesn't look like it's been in the rain for 2 years. Okay, here's the finished product after the cosmetic surgery, I guess we call it. Not perfect, but it certainly looks a lot healthier than it did before. Let's take a look at the back of it. Not too bad. So there we are. The $10 Hallicrafters is now back. So picking up this little receiver, the Hallicrafters S120, exiting the ham exposition, turned out to be a fun kind of cosmetic restoration project. Of course, this is just the beginning on this receiver. It will have to be recapped in order to make it functional again. And I have other videos that have covered that pretty extensively on the 120. And there's other videos on the on YouTube that show you, how to work with the 120 and get it playing again. But by using very simple materials from your local store, the Lowe's or the Home Depot or True Value Hardware or some automotive store, you can get very simple items like the Neverdull or automotive sandpaper and different types of primers and paints that'll give you a pretty good finish on this receiver. Now, is this going to be the same as going to a professional shop that does painting with paint chips and high quality lacquer paint and so on? No, it's nowhere near that, but at least it'll bring the radio back to the point where it doesn't look like something that belongs in the dumpster. It looks like something that belongs in your shack.